What's up, everybody? Hello, welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Paco Siller, and I'm here with my buddies, the Fung Bros. Fung Bros, how are we doing?
What's going on, everybody?
Yo. Great to be here, guys. We are coming in live from New York City. Thank you for joining us today, and love to, showcase what we're about to showcase.
Yes, Adobe Live. I'm always excited to go live. Yeah, because we do so many edited videos. So to go live, it's a really cool experience. And plus, we got an amazing host, man. Shout out to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for joining. We're going to get into their introductions in just one sec. But as always, we do have a little bit of things to shout out before we kick it off to the show. So first of all, check out the second week of the new Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. That's going on with Howard Spinsky, and it happens at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And also, if you're joining us on YouTube, make sure you head on over to be.net/Adobe Live. That is where we're going to be looking at the chat, answering any questions, and just saying what's up. So if you all have any questions for the Fung Bros or anything Premiere Pro related, head on over to that URL, and that's where we're going to be keeping an eye on the chat. And like I say, this is always a safe space. So if you have any questions, don't worry about if it's a too bunch of a beginner question. This is a place to learn for everybody. So we're going to be starting off here shortly with the Fung Bros. They're going to let us know what the content plan is. But before we do that, I got to give a shout out to our friends in the chat. So I think you guys are looking at them as well. But just seeing who's in the chat, we got Rick H with Z by HP. We got Bruce. We got Cody, Sam Peterson, Faisal, Robert, Cody Bear, Michelle, Megan. Oh man, I love to see all the people in the chat. I always love to see the worldwide audience we have too. So if you're in the chat, why don't you ping where you are tuning in from? The Fung Bros are in New York. I am actually in San Francisco right now. I'm back in the studio. So the OG people that have been watching the show for years, we used to go live in the studio, and I'm at that studio right now. So that's where I'm streaming from. So San Francisco here, New York City with my buddies, the Fung Bros. All right, cool. So without further ado, let's get into it, guys. I'm going to hop over to your screen and show what you guys are showing. Before we get into Premiere Pro, for those of the people that may not know who you guys are, why don't you tell them a little bit about who you guys are, show them maybe your YouTube channel, and just give them a little quick introduction on who the Fung Bros are.
Well, some of you guys in the chat are familiar with us. Some of you guys are not. So shout out to both groups of you guys, but we are real biological brothers. Grew up in Seattle, then moved to LA, started our YouTube careers there, just made a ton of content about Asian culture, immigrant culture, but kind of made it funny. I like to think of it as like taking an Asian American studies class, but you don't got to burn an elective, or you don't got to get a minor in it. Just watch the channel and it would be funnier too. Obviously, we're not going to say everything the same thing as academia, but it was just our perspective on a lot of different issues. I mean, it was just like through our lens, but our lens was obviously heavily impacted by having parents from other countries. And we connect with a lot of other immigrants on the channel to have them, explore their grandparents or their parents' culture. And that's been like one of the most gratifying experiences to do it in a funny way too. Cause that's my main thing is when it's funny, it's accessible. And it's more, you don't even know you watch something entertaining. I mean, educational, but you just did. But the humor was, obviously the packaging.
Man, I mean, I love over the past about 8.5 years that we've been full time at this, we've just been able to travel and explore a lot and meet different people and show off different cultures and enclaves. Not limiting ourselves to really any one culture, We've also in the past made a lot of sneaker and basketball material, but right now we're definitely more of just a culture channel. And then we actually recently started a podcast where we're posting up these like shorter clips, podcast clips, which are our hot takes. Like this is an Issa Lee one that
we're more celebrating.
We're that one. We're just excited to keep the podcast going and really grow that. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, let me know.
Hey guys, I love eating the delicious cheap eats, but if I can get 6,000 ups on a video of just me sharing my opinions on something, that's pretty gratifying too as an artist.
Yeah. Also, I do think that a lot of the topics that we choose, like there's not like a show or mainstream show that's really addressing these. And I'm not saying we have the only opinions on this, but of course, like we are trying to give our takes, really analyzing it, really going in depth. So it's just really cool for us. But yeah, shout out to everybody that's in the chat, Cody Bear, Biola. I know there's some people from Indonesia.
But as far as like format wise, the reason we use Premiere Pro is because like I would say our channel runs a little bit more television style. And when you need to cut television tier content, or at least, you know, high-end digital web content, you really need the tools at your disposal, you know, because you need it to feel like a premium web, like a Netflix show or like a TV show.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, again, like we're so happy to be with Adobe Premiere right now and working with them, and that's the program that we use to edit all our videos.
Awesome. Well, yes, again, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to see what's going to go on. And again, we have the Fung Bros for the next 2 days. Well, today and tomorrow. Woo! So thank you for that introduction, guys. I'm excited to do it. And I got to ask, who's older?
I'm older.
You're older? Cool. By how much?
2 years.
2 years. Cool. I have a brother too,
bro.
and we also do video, but here's the fun fact. We're twins.
Oh,
Everybody always asks us that. They're like, which one's older? And I'm like, depends on who you ask. My mom says I'm older. My dad says he's older because we came out at the same time. Literally, twins. Ooh, someone's going to dispute that fact. They're like, wait a second. I think the other one's older.
Dave's got a lower voice. It's good.
All right, so let's jump into Premiere and let's start getting to this project. Let us know what's in store, what are we doing, and everything that's going to go on with what we got going.
So like I told you guys, like if you guys may not know, you know, I do edit the videos, or a lot of them, and then so I'm going to be walking you guys through how we did this latest one, which is our Williamsburg, Tokyo, Brooklyn video, where we pretty much got to try a lot of like kind of new Japanese concepts in Brooklyn. And this was the prompt that we chose to do this video on. And I'm going to walk you through from the end and work backwards to kind of the beginning of it. So part one is kind of us like calling the footage and picking highlight spots and just kind of cutting and doing all that good, like, you know, jump cutting essentially. And then part two, it just kind of progresses, and then we'll get to the final product, and then we'll get to like how we made reels for it, using like the new Adobe Premiere Pro elements that they have, all the features such as like auto reframe, which is super helpful.
Auto reframe is some voodoo magic. I mean, I remember the days where you had to manually reframe it. You have different clients who are like, oh, I want to put this 4x5. This wants to go on Instagram. It's like, but I just edited this 16:9. Absolutely. And now literally at the click of a button, I mean, it'll just literally reframe it. So that's a very cool feature. Stick around for that.
And also, I just want to like try to answer some questions while we're at it. Do you do all your own graphics? Well, we use a lot of the graphics from Adobe Premiere Pro, like the Mogerts and stuff like that. So that's actually something that we've been incorporating a lot recently.
Yeah, and we'll get into that in a sec. Again, all these features that come out with the Adobe products just make it easier as we like to say, a one-man band to edit it. It used to be that you had to get a motion graphic artist to do it, but now there's so many templates, a lot of them for free. You can just stick on a video and it makes it super easy. So I'm assuming we'll be using some Mogerts with this edit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And again, like if anybody has any like content questions on how to like come up with ideas or questions about how we kind of go about our like producing of videos, please let us know. I mean, those are questions that we're more than happy to answer, because, you know, that's on the creative side. As much as, you know, it's like we always said when in video editing, it's like, David, filming, that's like gathering the ingredients for a dish, and then editing, that's really where you're cooking it.
Right. That's a good analogy. I like that. Yeah, and I'm just gonna reiterate what the Fung Bros are saying. So we have them for 2 days. If you have any questions with content, now's the time to ask them. These are the content kings right here. They know so much about it. So if you want any questions about content for YouTube or how to start with video, ask away, because this is essentially a live Q&A while we do some editing. So now's the time to do it. And while we're talking about chat, I do want to shout out some of the responses we got on the question with where people are from. So we got Megan from Western Canada, Robert from Sweden, Tina from Rhode Island, Community Choice from Detroit, Seti from New York, from Bruce from Lower Wachusett, New York. I think I'm saying that right. A couple of people from Arizona, Germany, from Mexico. Yeah, so again, this is a worldwide audience. I love to see the amount of people that come tune in for our shows. And again, thank you for joining us, and do not hesitate to engage with us, because we're going to be having a good time for the next about hour and 45.
I like it. Someone said from exotic Massachusetts.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's some cool foods out there. No, I mean, been to Boston a number of times. Detroit, New York,
Arizona,
Lower Westchester.
Andrew, you spent some time in Arizona.
I have been
to Tempe.
Yeah, been to Phoenix and Tempe, and shout out to Arizona. Buenos Aires. Wow.
Shout out to LA, Cholula, Mexico. I know Cholula is a very famous sauce.
I'm sure that's what everybody says to you guys, but yeah, I mean that sauce, I believe, is
Buenos Aires.
Like
that's in Argentina. Great steak houses.
You guys are like foodies, aren't you?
Yeah,
I feel like you know everything there is to know about foods.
Try to use it as a gateway in a culture. I think you can stop at food. Some people do that. That's fine. But for me, I like to use it to go deeper.
You know what it is? It's like inevitably the more food you eat and the more you look into it, the more you're going to end up thinking about culture. There's almost like no way around it, because a lot of these foods, they either, even if you think that they're invented in the modern day in like America, for example, they all have like a root dish, a lot of them, you know, that come from somewhere else, or an inspiration. And it's always really cool to look back at.
Awesome. All right. Well, the questions are pouring in. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and then we're going to jump into the content, because before you know, the time will go by like that. All right. So first question, what's your go-to handheld device? Hello from Scotland. Thanks, David.
My go-to is the Sony FX3. It's the new, cinema line camera. It's essentially like a rebuilt A7S III. But I do think that, as much as people criticize it and say, oh, the processor and the sensor's the same as the A7S III, when you actually use it, it feels quite different. And I think that's one thing I learned about equipment over time is like, let's say, for example, there's the same sensor or the same lens on 2 different bodies. So on paper, there's not a lot of difference, but in terms of the usability and the feeling, there's just like general energy you get from devices. I'm really glad that I went to the FX3 from the A7S III. And I think the money was worth it. I lost money on the trade-in. You know what I mean? Some people are so consumed with like losing money on the trade-in, but you can't really put a price on how different a device feels in your hands, even if the specs on paper feel the same.
Oh, and one recommendation, like one thing that we really realized when we got into film is like, one, the glass, the lens means a lot. And even when you, always shoot outside and you have the ND filter, I know a lot of the time, a lot of people will go for like the variable ND, and it actually kind of matters what ND you have. If you have a higher quality one, because you're putting glass on top of your glass. So of course, whatever you put on top of it matters in how it looks. And a little bit more,
buy the higher end. I mean,
if you invest in it, it's worth
just like anything. There's a low tier, a middle tier, a high tier with your ND filters. Your Pro Mist. Just get the expensive one.
Yeah,
that's what I would suggest, because
if your goal is to make it look as good as possible, you should invest in it and just get the top tier one. And maybe that's what you could just use for almost all your projects. If it's high quality, it's just going to make everything look better. That's something that we definitely realized.
Very cool. All right. 2 more questions, and maybe we could do rapid fire on these, because they're pouring in.
I like
what is your favorite place you have visited and favorite food that you tried there?
I could say the most surprising place that I really enjoyed the food has been, and I don't want to sound stereotypical here, but like Texas. I think in Texas, you watch
great barbecue.
Yeah. You watch King of the Hill growing up. and you think that it's all like Arlington type vibes. And that food is great there. Obviously, you know, even some chuck wagon steak all the way down to the stuff from like 100 years ago is good. But really good Vietnamese food in Houston, and really good just food from around the world that I just didn't expect in the great state of Texas. So shout out to Texas. Really, obviously been on the upside the last, 10, 20 years. So shout out to
No, Texas actually has a great food scene, and partially
very unique culture too. Like a lot of people leave their keys in Texas in their glove compartments. Like, and that's a major thing because they're like, hey man, like I want to let everybody know I trust them and they trust me. And like, and it's not everywhere in Houston, but like it was a real thing I saw multiple times.
Also, like, they have a lot of space and they have a little bit more time to like cook food. So actually the food quality is really, really good out there. They're not rushing things. For me, I actually got a chance to go to Jakarta, Indonesia, and I thought that was a really interesting place. And I know that there's a couple people from Indonesia in the chat.
Abu Kabar.
Yeah, Abu Kabar. And it was so cool. Like that was a very interesting place to me. The food was very different. It's even a type of like kind of subsect of Asian food that a lot of people in America are not really familiar with yet. You know, we do have quite a bit of different ethnic foods in America, but Indonesian is definitely one that's like not as much on the map. But, you know, it's a really big country. It's a big culture, really old, and it has like a lot of cool traditions and stuff like that. So I think I'm looking forward to Indo food being more popular in America. But
heck yeah. I love it, guys. Thanks for all those tips. I see more questions. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to write down the questions, and then when we have a little lull, I'll go ahead and ask them from here on out. But let's get into the content, though, because like I said, this is going to be over before you know it. So what are we doing today?
All right. So what we have is kind of like a real basic string out of this first video. I don't know. It's actually up on our channel right now. I don't know if you guys watched it. It's about trying all these cool Japanese spots in Brooklyn. And there's a lot of cool new concepts. And this is like a lot of the footage that we have here. And I'm going to be like trimming and chopping, obviously with the razor tool here, going throughout it. Or I can just shorten the clips, right? As everybody knows. I mean, if you guys have used Adobe Premiere Pro, you guys definitely know what I'm talking about. You guys might be even better than me. I don't know. So just being able to, you know, move that clip around, and let's see what we want to cut out first. So basically what we do is like we'll upload a lot of the clips, we'll put them all next to each other, and then just chop them down. So it's like a really long project here. And you can also make them different colors, which obviously helps you see like different sections. Here we have different locations, so you know the location changes between the blue and the pink one. Yeah, so let's just roll it and see.
And enzymology. All I can
Enzymology.
Yo, there, see, already I picked the right clip. That is funny. David, hilarious clip already.
the techniques of fermentation and enzymology. All I can tell you is that they're doing things differently.
That's a real word, by the way, that I picked up off the brochure at Rule of Thirds, which is this place. It's a real thing. I didn't just invent it, although I'm not against inventing words.
Yeah, we're not, you know, I feel like that's the beauty of language, you know,
especially the English language. If you guys study linguistics, it's a very flexible language.
Yeah.
Adopts a lot of vocab from a lot of different global societies.
Oh yeah, being able to, the alphabet system allows you to really make up new words all the time. But enzymology.
The chef and owners are
This is actually a really beautiful looking video. This one was actually shot on a Blackmagic Pocket 6K.
This is 6K Pro.
I was gonna say that depth of field looks pretty dang good.
So, like a lot of people, if you want more cinematic footage, different cameras typically have different amounts of dynamic range. Dynamic range is probably the most underlooked aspect of making something look cinematic. But Andrew, you're just chopping this up in Premiere Pro. As you guys can see, if you guys are watching this, I'm sure you guys are familiar with obviously the audio timeline and the video timeline. They're often, not all the time, but majority of the time, they're synchronized together.
Yeah, so I can use this tool and actually just kind of push things when I want to extend this clip and see what else is in this, what other gems David gave us. But I would say, I know that there was a quick question about like, oh, does it really matter how good the quality is for YouTube? I mean, definitely YouTube kind of has a standard now. It's gotten to a point where people expect a pretty decent quality, but it does not have to be on the FX3 or the Blackmagic at all. It could easily be on like a Canon, like 80D. I think that's a really common one. I mean, people have made amazing careers off of the G7X vlogging camera too, point and shoot. So it's really about how you use it and how you edit.
Regular bento, but obviously, as you can see, the elements here are very different.
So different. I want to see what do I say the rest of this?
I'm going to reiterate that real quick. I think when people start out with video, I think they're really caught up in getting the best of the best. When you're just starting out, the thing I'd recommend is just start shooting, right? I mean, most cell phones, if you have a smartphone, have a camera, I'd say start shooting and get used to the process of what it's like to edit video. I mean, get familiar with the types of video that is shot, like what's the difference between HD, 4K. And I think the more you start to get into it, the more you'll start to realize what type of video content you go to, right? There's a difference between like trying to make cinematic travel videos or like vlogs such as this. So I think just start doing it first without pouring so much money into it to even see if you even want to stick with it. And then once you start to get better at it and you realize what type of video content you're making, then you can make a little bit more educated decisions on the type of gear that you want to buy.
100%. I agree. It definitely, I think if you're more of a personality-based comedy channel, your equipment does not have to be top of the line at all.
Sometimes it's funnier. Sometimes it's funnier when the camera quality is worse.
Yeah.
That's why lately people have been filming things on like camcorders and stuff, or like even old DV8, like camcorders from like 1993. You know, they're expensive right now because everybody wants them because everybody was creating digital film grain in post, and obviously programs like Premiere Pro, but everybody has access to those tools. If you actually get an actual camcorder from 1993, nothing can beat that. Like how realistic it's going to look to the retro style.
It's really about usability because like these shots were set up pretty well by our camera guy, Dan. And I'm going to be honest though, beautiful setups, they take more time, and more time means maybe more energy. It could, you have
this was shot on an 1835 Sigma, by the way. If you guys are looking for a $700 lens, that makes everything look like a movie for like an average person. An 18 to 35 might be the most closest they get to a cinema lens that they ever would purchase, because they don't want to get into the actual heavy cinema glass.
18 to 35 Sigma all around solid lens.
I think that 1835 Sigma goes down to a 1.8. Which gives you amazing depth of field and bokeh. So that's why you can get that cinematic look, because it has a really shallow depth of field. So that's a great lens, and $700 is still not cheap, but compared to some other lenses, it is cheap. Mm-hmm. So that's a great lens to use.
It's probably the most bang for your buck lens ever made, right? Probably in terms of just pure quality.
Yeah, a lot of one-man bands that shoot with GH5s, we usually pair it up with a Sigma at 1835 1.8. It's a great lens.
Man, and you know what I love? If you do make the investments and you shoot something nice on your like DSLR now, with the features on Adobe Premiere Pro, like auto reframe, it makes it easy for you to cut that up and also get amazing looking like Instagram videos, YouTube stories,
TikToks,
Reels on TikToks. Exactly. Like, not all TikToks are shot on phones, Android or iPhone or whatever. Like a lot of them are shot on actual cameras, but they're just reframed. And I think that is amazing. So you'll actually be able, it's not like you have to switch to your iPhone or your Samsung to go make like a TikTok video. You could just use that same footage that you already took the time to film and just chop that up for the other platforms. And I think that is amazing. And I think that makes a lot of sense.
That's a big one. All right, so let's get back into this. Let's
the
people that may have just joined in the last 5 minutes, what are we editing here?
Obviously, as you can see, the elements here are very different. And then you have your
so you can see this like obviously we're talking about food. I know what this, I'm familiar with this dish. I looked at the elements, but I'm not I didn't cook it, so I'm not like an expert on it. So I'm still trying to find my words. So that's why I'm just gonna cut that out. Like you could just make all this stuff really like move a lot quicker, because I can tell, our videos our style is, if you guys have seen the videos, it's fairly punchy. There are some quick jump cuts, not too quick, not the quickest on YouTube, but we do like having things to say, but if it's not said perfectly or we stumble and stuff like that and it just drags on, and we just usually figure people don't really want to see us like try to like find our words and stuff like that. So we'll just chop that out.
So yeah, and what Andrew's doing is going through the timeline right now, combing it, basically picking out parts, cutting out breaths, pauses.
Have your Onori waffle.
Okay, so I'm gonna use that.
So let's say, for example, he stumbled before his words. Before he's talking about the nori waffle fries, and it's like, you know, maybe we did a second take afterwards that was a little cleaner. You're gonna go ahead and just go and delete the first take, then snap the second take, obviously back into the timeline, and then it'll look like the second take was essentially the first time.
Yeah, and definitely, even while we're filming, you know, we kind of get this, we've done it enough where you get this sense of after you've said something, if it didn't like sound right, you're kind of like, let me redo it. And then you're just kind of recount back in like 1, 2, 3. And hopefully we'll find a clip like that so I could show you guys our like little mess up, because it's definitely not all 100% perfect. I wouldn't say it's scripted, but it's definitely like, we'll re-say lines that we're like, oh, that was a good line. Like, okay, let me just re-say it. Hold on, you know, just to make it clean. So there is a little bit of like production and directing yourself while you're filming.
It's a little bit like in an interesting way, like making a song. You know, like if you guys have ever made a song and you layer the vocals and you do like multiple takes.
Oh, we have a question from the chat. Yuma's asking, sometimes I try to speed up a clip, but it just looks skippy. Any tips?
I think you got to look at the frame rate that you filmed it in, and you have to look at the compression when you load it into the program, what codec it was on originally. So there's a lot of things from what I discovered that could like make that happen. Everything from your RAM in your computer, so that's like a U issue, to like the codec compression didn't go well, to like, you know what I mean? Obviously in camera, I'm assuming that clip, even when you play it back 2x, it looks smooth. So you got to kind of identify like where in the process what went wrong. And there's probably like 3 or 4 points that it could have happened at.
Yeah. Also, it looks skippy. It may just look like that in the playback. So you might have to export it,
render it out.
Yeah, right? Render it and export it out. Because I know that when, you know, depending on the computer you use, or just even on my computer, I have a Mac Mini right now, and it's just like when I do a whole bunch of edits and you replay it back right away and you add a bunch of different assets and elements, it's like super choppy and skippy. So that's normal. I guess, Paco, if you have anything else to add, because
I have a couple things to add to that. Yeah. So the first thing I do, and again, depending on the machine that you're editing this on, will make a big difference on playback. But one of the things you can do is, if you look at the video frame that the Fung Bros have on their screen, there's a little thing that says full. You can usually drop that down to maybe half or a quarter. It's right next to the little like screwdriver next to the time code, right below the video on the bottom right. No, you got to go up to the video.
Wait, you want?
If you want to just show them what I'm talking about. No, it's all good. You see where it says full, right below the clip. You can drop the quality, and that will usually help with playback. Another thing you can do is proxies. Have you guys ever heard of proxies?
That's your thing. You should tell them.
Okay, so proxies, it's a little more advanced, but it's actually a pretty good hack when you have a system that isn't really modern and is struggling to do playback. Is what you can do is you can turn any clip into a lower version of that clip. So Premiere Pro makes it very easy. You just right click and say create proxies, and say you have a HD footage or a 4K clip. You can make a proxy, which is another term for a lower resolution version of that, so that it's smoother to play back. So you can make your entire video clips as a proxy. It does have to encode it and render it to a different version. But once you put those proxy versions of the original clip on a timeline and start to play it back, it's going to be so much more smoother and so much better playback than the native footage that comes out of a camera, because it's optimized for playback. Right. So that's another thing to look into. Like I said, it's a little more advanced, but there's a lot of forums and things out there to help you out in how to make proxies from Premiere Pro, and Premiere has made it pretty easy to make proxies. So that's one thing to do if your machine is really struggling to edit clips.
Yes, thank you, man. That was big.
Yeah, especially nowadays, you know, talking back to about the cameras, it's like the bit rates and the resolutions are so high. Sometimes I feel like,
Even
dude, they're
place.
even like, especially if you're trying to play them back in full res, it's like really too much for any computer to handle.
Yeah, if you're doing like 4K at like 60 frames per second and adding color correction, I mean, if you have a beast of a PC or Mac, then it might be able to handle it. But if you're on a laptop or just any, I'd say like prosumer computer, it's going to start struggling at some point. And Proxies can usually help with that. And of course, there are ways to configure a computer so it plays it back smoothly. A lot of it comes with like the way that you set up your drives. But again, you really got to invest money and time to do that. So if you're just starting with editing and you have a machine that's maybe like 5 years old or maybe a little later, definitely look into Proxies because it'll make your machine this like new editing machine that you didn't know was capable. All thanks to Proxies. All right, cool. So what are we doing now? What are we doing now, guys?
So you know, once you kind of like find the clips that you want, I like to definitely accentuate certain clips, and this is like a little really easy effect that is great for YouTube. You do not have to be a pro, and you don't have to even deal with even advanced, you know, Mogert motion graphic arts if you don't want to. I think the digital zoom punch-in is what we call it. I don't know if that's the technical term, but that is like the single most like funny editing effect that you can do on videos. And I think it's really easy to do. So what I just did was there's this part where I bit into my katsu.
This was cooked perfectly, super juicy.
Boom. And I just zoomed in, and it could have been on any part, anything funny, a little funny face that someone's doing on the side, but digital zooms are hilarious. All you have to do is cut that with the razor tool, that one spot that you want it to change. So I cut it right there. You don't have to cut the audio because it's the same clip. So I cut it right there. And then what I did was I just clicked on it and then I changed the scale, and you can just drag it left to right. Obviously this is at 23 now. And then you change the positioning. And this is like the easiest thing to do. And I think that if your video is filled with this, even if it has no other effects or no other titles, I think that is that's a really good YouTube
that's
trick.
A super simple edit trick, but super on point still.
And
it's,
very
you can't go
popular.
wrong with a jump zoom cut. Yeah, it's super popular and it's engaging, right? So one of the things you want to think about when you're making an edit is if you just have one shot that doesn't change and it's just somebody talking, we call those talking head type shots. It can get boring, right? But just a simple cut where you're just doing like different zoom ins or different cuts in, it keeps the viewer engaged because humans will just recognize a shot and then kind of tune out. You got to keep their attention going.
Yeah.
So
We're
a
not
simple
a-
jump zoom cut, it'll get them.
We're still like in some ways gigantic babies as adults. And if you know about
Gigantic
babies,
babies,
there's
I
like
love
there
that.
no like you got to just switch up the framing
And
on them
hearty
sometimes.
food that uses the techniques of ferment.
Yeah, I mean, I think also you have to understand for YouTube, and this is for anybody who is creating any type of content, because a lot of YouTube videos are viewed on mobile, and that means the screens
Yeah,
are smaller.
point.
So you tell people where to look, because if you keep things in the wide shots are beautiful. We love them, but usually you don't want to keep stuff in the wide too long because you tell the viewer what they want to see. So you'll zoom in on a face, on the food. Like I just zoomed in on that katsu
And
again.
hearty food.
Like that was obviously the quality of the camera is pretty good and my computer is pretty solid. So it'll play back in high quality, but like I just zoomed in a whole nother, like, what is that? 40% right there onto the katsu.
Healthy.
So it's like you go from the
In
wide,
Tokyo, they focus on healthy,
medium,
and hearty
boom,
food.
close up. Look at that. You can see
Yeah,
that.
and that's
Panko
good.
crumbs on that.
Yeah, one thing to know with it, when you're doing these cuts, it's, you have the voiceover that goes over, like, one thing we're looking at is X, Y, Z, and then the cuts match the things that you're calling out. And again, that's engaging and super, like, simple editing, but it keeps with the content. It keeps you very, very engaged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I hope these are all helpful. And again, like, we're just telling you just things that we like to do to make our videos more dynamic, because it is true that, a lot of creation is the editing process. Like we said, a lot of cooking, as much as you have the good ingredients, you still need someone to fire up the pan, to cook it right. You need to get the wok going, and then there's timing involved and everything like that. Timing is really big on YouTube, especially when you're doing like kind of comedic kind of exploration.
Yeah, I see it. A lot of people struggle with that. Like they might be creating,
this is a funny part.
Seeing something similar to that they've seen before prior on YouTube, but they're just like doing it in the wide, and they're not doing the punch-ins, and they're not filming it the day of as if there's going to be punch-ins and stuff like that. It's a little bit like 90s movies. YouTube kind of reminds me of 90s movies, like was it Coming to America, or a lot of like Eddie Murphy movies where like he breaks the third wall and cuts the camera and stuff like that. I feel like that stuff really, like that tone really works well on YouTube from what I've seen.
Wow. So I made another funny face here in reaction to this nori brushed waffle fry. Nori is seaweed, right? And it's like a kind of a flavoring. What's really furikake, which is like kind of like the seaweed seasoning mixture with salt and honestly MSG, but it's pretty good. And they sprinkled it on the waffle fries. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to zoom in.
To answer that question about ADRs over close-ups, I try not to because the nature of YouTube is like, you're a little bit like, you got to keep cranking it. So like, I don't really like to go back and do ADRs. Like it's like a TV show. We used to do that when we had a TV show, like super specific ADRs that are planned out. I'd rather go ahead and give a master ADR like while I'm filming the food, and then have the editor place the close-ups to match the ADR later. I don't really like going back and going, all right, at 221 to 224, I need an ADR for waffle fries. And then I go into my thing and record waffle fries and send it in and label it. It's just a lot of work.
Yeah. And it's not to say like, hey, if your passion is to put a lot of work into it and you want it to look a certain way, there's plenty of people who have amazing fan bases and share amazing content by investing a ton of time in editing. I think that there's another way where, you pump out more content, and that's why editing takes time. How much does fashion matter when making content? Fung bros are pretty dapper. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you, Bruce Gonzalez. I do think we put out a lot of videos at this point, still 2 or 3 a week. And so that's quite a bit of content. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say we have a whole entirely different outfit every video, because obviously we have clothes in our closet that we just wear in different videos, but yeah, it helps to give people different looks. And sometimes it actually depends on what the background is. Like New York City, for example, a lot of the outside is kind of brown and gray for the most part, especially when you're in the Lower East Side, which is like a lot of old buildings. So yeah, wearing something colorful, brighter, it just helps you stand off from it. I don't think it's a must, but it always helps.
Yeah, and to answer some of the questions about ADR, it's almost like a voiceover. Like if you film a shot and you didn't like the audio, you could record over it and try and match the audio. If there's lips, obviously you want to match the lips, but if there isn't, then it's just a voiceover over a close-up. I think what the Fung bro said is a good point. Is when you're churning out content, it's not something you really want to worry about. It's just one more thing to do when you're making a video in the editing process. If you can just get it right on camera or not worry about that because it's not that type of video, then I wouldn't sweat it. Obviously, if you're shooting a short film or a video, then audio is very important. And if you have a plane fly over or something like that, then you might want to do an ADR over that. But for these types of videos, I agree with them. I don't think it's necessarily necessary. Cool. All right. So back to the video. What's going on now? So what's the goal with this video? In case we have new people that are coming in and are just watching this edit, what are we making right now?
Making a masterpiece, man.
Masterpiece
Just
right
kidding.
here on Adobe Live.
So this is a video called we call it Tokyo Brooklyn, where we're exploring a lot of really cool new Japanese concepts in Williamsburg. And I think most people, when they think about Japanese food, they're thinking about like a very high-end omakase over in Manhattan, or ramen, Ipuro or whatever. But in actually Brooklyn, they have a lot of really cool experimental stuff. Even a lot of these spots are not necessarily started by Japanese people. It's started by a lot of people who've trained in Japanese food and trained in Japanese restaurants.
In their childhood, I suspect they may have been otakus.
Oh, or weebs. Yeah.
But they since entered the culinary world and then fused that otaku-ness or weeaboo-ness with their love for food. And then I think that that's what led to so many like non-Japanese people opening up progressive new wave Japanese concepts in Brooklyn. And that's what this video is about. We're in the process of chopping it right now. As you guys can see, you know, there's a lot of different cuts that happen, you know, there's a lot of just things that get chopped out, footage that is B-roll footage that gets chopped and then placed on top of a, you know, voiceover to match the content. And that's very similar to television shows, you know, and you can edit a whole television show in Premiere Pro easily if you want, you know. The tools are there, the power's there, all the things that you want to do. I mean, it really depends on what type of content you make. Some people, they, you know, like we said, we make, you know, lower end TV style content. That's our style.
Call it DIY Vice content, Munchies content. Yeah, very slim team. We don't roll out with a lot of extra lights. So it's very important that we find good lighting, man.
And also, it does kind of go back to the tools, because obviously if you have Sonys and that tend to do well in low light with lenses that are lower aperture, you can open them up. So, I mean, you know, for sure the tools matter. I don't like it when people say tools don't matter, because they do matter, but they just matter to like a 40% extent. Six out of 10 factors is you, 4 out of 10 is your tools. So a lot of people, they try to worry about getting that max 4 points on the tools, but they themselves, they might be like a 2 out of 6. So it's like they're already missing 4. So it's just an equation of like, are you handling what you can handle? And then at some point, yeah, for sure, the tools have an impact.
Listen, I would say at some point, if you love using what you use, and it's like for some reason that, for example, GH5 just like touches your soul and you just are a master with it, there's no problem in still using that even down the road.
I think like the GH5 right now is a 5-year-old camera. For a lot of filmmakers, you know, they love it. Even though it's micro 4/3, it's still got a very small sensor. Like, the people just love the portability of it.
They love how it handles. And I think ultimately, if you love to use something and you love to pick it up and you love to film with it, that is ultimately the number one most important thing. Because if you want to create with it, I think that you can get a large, cumbersome cinema camera. Even I have to be honest, this Blackmagic Pocket 6K, we put a extra battery pack on the bottom with 2 extra batteries. And it is a little bit larger and it's not as portable. It looks amazing. We love it. It has a built-in ND filters, but it is heavy and I can't just throw it in a side bag like I can one of our Sonys, you know? So we just acknowledge that, you know, there's just pros and cons to each thing.
I know some people who are like professional filmmakers in the sense of like, they shoot like pro premium web content for money. Like, they don't have that's their main source of income. And they're filming on like Fuji films or like Nikons, but there's just something about those Nikons or Fujifilm cameras that when they pick them up, they're just like in love with it, or they're one with that, you know, thing. It's almost like the Ninja Turtles, you know, realistically, the Leonardo, he's the one who had the sword. Yeah, the sword, right? That's easily the best weapon, guys. Like, hands down, if you're trying to kill bad guys, the sword is way better than the other things. But, you know, Michelangelo, maybe he needed to use the nunchucks for himself. That's what was right for him. Hey. So, you know, obviously,
I think Donatello had the short end of that stick. I mean,
because he had the stick.
He had the stick. Yeah. I mean, everybody's got
stick is versatile, but yeah, it's not going to be the most lethal.
It's not going to be the most lethal.
Shout out to Kevin Lee. He said he has a Rebel T3i, and
that was
honestly,
my first camera.
That
was my first camera ever.
Here's my one thing about certain cameras, though. First of all, we did have that camera back in the day. That was actually one of our first YouTube cameras. Was the T3i.
T2i.
Oh, T2i. Wow.
Oh, nice.
Sound is one thing that you should definitely get a external mic, like a Rode mic, to attach on top, because sound is actually really important for content when you're talking, unless you're just doing B-roll. But yeah, definitely getting a decent sound source. And usually the onboard is like barely good enough unless you're like vlogging.
Yeah, that's a great point. I wouldn't sleep on sound. I mean, if you have great video but bad sound, you're going to lose the audience. I mean, I'd say sound is just as important, if not more important, than the video. So
Exactly,
yeah, the
yeah.
T2i, T3i, it's a great beginner camera for sure. But you got to pair that up with a solid external mic, like even like a shotgun mic or just something external. It'll make a world of difference for sure.
And there are going to be limits to a, you know, T3i, for example. But ultimately, if you love using it and love creating, man, that's whatever inspires you to create. That's important.
I usually tell people if they only have like $400, get like a used 80D, like a 80D. They're already on 90D, but just like the 80D was really when I was like, man, they really got this. Like that's a super easy camera to use. Like I can't think of an easier camera that looks good to use.
Yeah, the autofocus on the 80D is incredible. The follow focus, I would actually say I've seen a lot of, I think Superwoman, if you guys are familiar with Lily Singh, I think her first camera for a while for vlogging that really, you know, where she really blew up with was just an 80D. And that's a lot of people's too.
And a lot of people don't understand with the audio too. Like I think people read like 500 reviews on like which audio to get. You can just get like, you know, onboard sound if you really want. You know what I mean? Not onboard, I'm sorry, but like the mics that don't have their own external power.
Oh yeah.
Like they have upgraded versions of the video mic. It's just called like a video mic.
No, you're saying that it's not.
No, it's powered through. It's powered through the 3.5 millimeter jack.
Yeah.
So I know for a lot of really video people, like surprisingly, not everybody's like into everything. Not everybody like wants to get the best mic and the best lens and the best camera body. They're just like, yeah, this works good enough. And I think if you just get like a plug-in mic with a 3.5 millimeter jack, even that is like enough to start. As long as your lens, your focal length is not too far. You know what I mean? Because obviously the ones that are powered off the cameras on board, phantom power, it's like, it's not that strong. But if you're filming at like 20 millimeters on a full frame, it's going to be close. It's totally it'll be enough to carry you through your first 2-3 years of your career.
And another thing is for audio is like, if you do end up getting really, really poor audio, maybe it's super windy or your mic wasn't plugged in, or mic wasn't turned on, for example, which has happened with us.
Oh boy.
You know, you can do the ADR voiceovers later in post, and it's not ideal. Or you could just do like a funny voiceover and just say, hey guys, this clip, I lost the audio to this clip because this was windy because my microphone blew off, blah, blah. Like, you know, you can kind of fill it in, but probably for the whole video, you know, people do like to see you out in the wild. But
I'm going to give a quick pro tip that I've actually had to use. I recommend doing this as a backup, maybe not your primary source of audio, but if you are shooting an interview, say, and you don't have great audio, one thing you can do is you can take your phone, right, your iPhone or any smartphone, and then if they have a pocket, put it right here somewhere off camera, and then record audio using the phone. And then what you do is just like any interview is you'll slate it, so you'll give a clap. You'll be like, interview take 1, and you do that clap. So when you bring it into post, you see where the clap was on the audio on the camera and the audio on the phone, and then you can sync it. And the audio coming out of this is going to be way better than the onboard camera. So it's like a backup, like little microphone that surprisingly has worked pretty well. And again, use it as a backup, worst case scenario, but it's way better than the on-camera mic. And yeah, it's saved me a few times in some interviews on the field.
No, honestly, that's actually a really good tip. No, really, that's huge. One thing that we actually use for voiceovers, and we did some voiceovers for this video, and I'll show you when we talk about like the final exported project, is that we did use, I use this voice record app to do our voiceovers. I literally do the voiceovers off the iPhone, and then I send the file to my computer. And yeah, it's an app that kind of compresses the voice a little bit, so it sounds a little bit better than just a regular iPhone voice record app. But man, that's how we do it. So
yeah, dude, like dude, if you guys want, like, man, obviously for television, if you want your thing to be on Netflix, you probably want to do the voiceover on a mic, you know, with a windscreen. Right. But like for YouTube, I mean, they're going to compress the heck out of it already on an audio and a visual level to just be able to air on their platform. So, you know, a lot of things are, you know, people are always concerned about, oh, yo, does this mic have enough low end? It's like, people are watching off their phone, like on the train or like on the bus, or like a lot of people have it blasting off their smartphone if they're like just at work and maybe they have a job doing boxes or some sort of like physical labor. You know, I see a lot of people play things off their phones, and it's like, you know, you really got to think about the pros and the cons and to your workflow. I think so many people get obsessed with the, you know, ultra high quality. If you figure out a real great way to do it easily, then by all means do it. But we do a lot of voiceovers, even for this video, straight into iPhone. You know, to your point about putting an iPhone just down on it as a backup audio.
You can also do voiceovers, obviously, off your camera too, and then just rip that audio from the footage that you film of you just facing the camera. We do that a lot as well. But sometimes if I'm just sitting there and I'm like looking at the video, I'm just like,
I think what you're referring to, Paco, is that like a lot of people, they get like become professional like camera equipment reviewers, but they don't actually like make stuff themselves. And it's like, it's this whole thing that's like, it's very like on Reddit, it's on forums, and it's like people are arguing about this like 20 millimeter 1.8 versus this 24 millimeter. Yeah, it doesn't matter because you're not going to make any money on either of them. You know what I mean? It's like you shooting like flowers in your backyard, or like maybe at most, like, to be honest, like some model that you asked to do a shoot with, but you're not actually creating any content that has any commercial or value added on a viral, whether it's on a commercial aspect or a viral aspect. So I think that that's the main part. And to those people, I think a lot of people like maybe try to convince those people to become creators and leave the camera wars alone. But at the end of the day, in my honest opinion, those people's like, they never really was meant to create anything anyway. That's what they enjoy doing. Is like, I know a lot of people who read a lot of basketball sneaker reviews and they never play basketball, or they just play in their front yard with their friends. It's not going to matter about this shoe versus that shoe at that point, to be honest. So I don't know. I can't really tell anybody, you know, I don't try to look down on the camera wars people either. You know what I mean? I just look at it like, sometimes I see like filmmakers try to convince that crowd to do it. So I'm like, clearly they have no intention of creating anything, or else you would have seen it. You know what I mean? Like in the childhood or something, you know, because me and Andrew, we used to like, and I'm not saying that like this to make anybody feel bad, but like, I remember we used to put on these like fake shows of death on the side of the road, where me and Andrew used to like do WWE.
It's like a theater.
Yeah, it was theater, but people would really think we were fighting on the street, and people would like try to honk their horns and say, "Hey, I'm calling the cops. You guys stop fighting." But it was just like, you could just see it when we were kids. This is way before cell phones even had like cameras. There was just this intense desire to like show the world some sort of performance, you know. And usually I'm like, oh, for sure I was going to do this. Like, because I'm already putting on shows on the side of the street for free.
Yeah. I mean, now we're just a lot older and just doing it on camera.
And still doing the show of death.
Show of death. Yeah, man. I used to crush up mints in my mouth as teeth. And then when David hit me, I'd spit them out as a little special effects. Guys, obviously we were very much into movies and entertainment at the time. Maybe a little too much, perhaps, or not enough. Man. Yeah.
And you're using practical effects too. Look at you. You're ahead of the game.
No
editing. So where are we at in this video? What's going on here?
So what I wanted to show you guys is this shot. I thought was important because this one actually right here. So this is a shot. Usually, honestly, I would never recommend shooting against the sun, right? The sun is like, in a way, your enemy when you're filming outside, because it can overexpose, blow out everything.
Especially if you're on Sony.
Yeah, especially if you're on Sony and you don't have a good ND filter or a no ND filter, forget it. You'll have to crank your f-stop up to like 12 if you can do that, and cut out as much light as possible, essentially. You know, I know I'm not using the technical terms, but that's how we talk. Luckily, with the Blackmagic, and this is not a commercial for it, it just has built-in ND filters, so this is a cool shot. But you got to be careful. This is a shot that like is always beautiful in a short. Like, you just, when you see the light flare, the sun flare, you really just want to see it peak, and you don't want to hold this shot too long, because literally then people are staring at a all white, bright like screen. But it's really cool to see for like a split second. So Dan did a great job when he shot this. I believe this clip, was this in 60? Yeah, that was in 60. And then we slowed it down. And you can see it kind of floats. Yeah, and then it cuts to...
I'm Jackie.
Jackie. So Jackie, he's one of the guys that works at Okonomi. This is a really cool spot that the stuff that they're doing here is wild.
And
Let's
they're
take a
baking
look.
an egg like it's baby, so it's kind of like that.
So they
Ate the mazimen, everyone was like, yo.
So mazamen is like a type of kind of like dry ramen, and then they're doing a bacon, egg, and cheese. Obviously, it's New York City. You got like every cool new spot is doing their version of bacon, egg, and cheese, and they're doing theirs except in the mazamen style. Shout out if you guys have ever had that dish.
New York and Japanese. I just think it's the way that people live. Like in Brooklyn, people are more expensive.
So we asked the question, and we could have a title right here of like, what do you think makes Brooklyn Japanese food so experimental and inventive? You know, because I feel like in Manhattan, they don't have the bacon, egg, and cheese mazamen. And he's just saying like Brooklyn's a very experimental kind of like hip place. So people want to try new things. All right, so here's.
See,
Next up, we are in East Williamsburg at Okonomi having a modern Japanese breakfast. Man.
So if you could see how this is more of a shot thing, less an editing thing, but how Dan kind of moved in.
Yeah, I was going to point that out. That's great. And again, another easy thing to do to make your videos a little bit more dynamic and engaging. You know, because I think when people are starting out, they would just hold the camera right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what he did was like slowly close up at the intro of that shot, and that's a very cool trick to do.
And it's just him pushing in, literally,
handheld,
like he's not really walking that much. He's maybe stepping forward a little bit. And there's a lot of tutorials on YouTube on how to do that smoothly, where you have to like lay your heel first and then you roll off of it to kind of decrease the shaking, you know, when you step. And then he just moves in and pushes in with his arms going forward. Now you can actually do that in a like a Ken Burns zoom in edit, but it kind of the organic feel of it looks kind of extra cool.
Next up, we are in East Williamsburg at Okonomi.
Yeah. So when you start a shot, that's a really cool transition, is like you'll start a little bit wider and you just push it like that.
I try to tell people to do stuff in camera as much as possible. I mean, just try to do it in camera, guys. Like, just, you know, the tools are there for you in the program. Obviously, Premiere is one of, you know, if not the strongest strongest one out. But then it's going to take, you know, longer, more work and more effects. It's more taxing on your computer rig.
And I think like this is like what we're talking about, because I'm not a super pro editor on Adobe Premiere, but, you know, I also like the filming aspect too. So if you can blend your passions of both and you get into the filming, and it's like grabbing good ingredients, right? For your dish before you cook it, right? If you get good ingredients, that's going to make your dish even better. Obviously you still have to time it right. You have to chop it right. You have to fry it right. You have to put some sauce on it. Like what we say sauce would be like effects and like digital zooms and stuff like that. But really, like, you want to give yourself the best ingredients possible, because that's going to make editing easier. If you have someone else editing it, they're going to like look at the footage and be like, oh, this is great footage. I like it. Yeah. Like I like to work with this footage. And even you're going to look back at your footage that you just uploaded and you're going to be like, oh, I like that shot. That was really cool how we did that. You know, we all came up with that idea to do that. And this shot looks good. Everything's in focus. It's not overexposed, etc. So I think it makes the editing process so much more fun and enjoyable when you put in the work to give yourself at least decent ingredients. Because
then that means all your ingredients are at least decent to great, right there. Now you don't even have to worry about like terrible footage.
Yeah.
Gets to eat.
And I'll say these things kind of come naturally the more you do it too. I mean, if you really stick with something like this and you shoot your first video and you're like, man, why does it look boring? Like, it's probably because you're just doing static shots. But, you know, kind of reanalyzing the footage you take, be like, man, it'd be great if I do like a zoom in, or like right before this shot, I like whip pan and go into the shot. It's just things that you start to get creative with, and you kind of analyze your footage. As if you shoot it and edit, be like, how can I change this up? How can I change the dynamicness of this video? And you learn little tricks like that, and it really, really does make a difference.
No, for sure.
All right, so where are we at in the video?
Very
So
light
what are we looking
breakfast.
at now?
And I think it's really cool. These sides are gonna look like side dishes, kind of like, you know, panchan, where you have your different fermented.
So how we like to shoot, and this is a tip for shooting. So not just to push in here, but we shoot a lot of food content and we have one camera. So what you can do to grab great B-roll is you can shoot separate B-roll clips of the food. Like if we open up the bento and you're saying, hey, okay, cool, shoot B-roll for 15 seconds. And then he's just going to go in and just capture all that cool B-roll. Or this is another trick to save even more time, guys. Just shoot the B-roll while we're talking. like we said, you don't have to see us talk that long. We like to talk a lot. You don't have to see our face.
Spanish macro bento.
Just move in on the food.
Looking at our
Right
two
here.
amazing bentos. Here we have the eel one, that's American eel. And then we have a
So you know how he kind of moved in, and now this is almost like B-roll. Like these shots are so clear, I could almost take like a screen cap of them, you know, if I needed to.
Spanish macro bento.
And then here's another cool thing about Adobe Premiere Pro, guys. If you want to skim through your footage quicker, click L. L is kind of like the universal button to press when you want to watch it at 2 times the speed.
A lot of people always wonder what Japanese people eat for breakfast, and I always heard that they had fish. They had a piece of salted fish usually, and then a bunch of sides. Very, very light breakfast.
And I think it's really cool. These sides are going to look like side dishes, kind of like, you know, panchan, where you have your...
So yeah, watching the footage for the first time, if you shot it and you know what you're looking for, I think it's totally fine to watch it at 2 times the speed. It's going to save a little bit of time because you'll be like, okay, I'm looking for this clip. I remember when I said this, when David said the thing about the eating a lot of fish and the side dishes, blah, blah, blah. So that's a little trick too. Click L, the letter L.
Click up. We got a question from the chat. You guys ready?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Chris is asking, do you guys use color grading? And if so, any you recommend, or do you just use the panels in Premiere Pro?
I think mostly we just try to bake it in at the time of filming. We have used LUTs in the past, lookup tables. It's a little bit much for YouTube, in my opinion. I don't think you need to do that unless you are a camera channel, because they tend to like, that's what they're talking about. They're making a video about LUTs. Of course, they would have a LUT on their video. For us, we try to bake it in. Blackmagic 6K Pro actually happens to have baked in LUTs. It's a new technology. A lot of, higher end cameras have had that for a while, but it's cool to have it on a something that's more affordable. I personally always like that. I like out of camera color. I think that that's the key to an efficient workflow, because like we're saying, even when you fix coloring in the S curves and stuff like that, which is great. And I think coloring in Premiere is great. As you can see, Andrew's messing with the curves right there. It's just, I don't like what it does to a computer usually. And, you really have to have a decked out rig to handle a ton of stuff like that. So I think long story short, guys, it goes back to, the philosophies that I'm going to give you. Obviously, you might listen to other people and they might give you another viewpoint that's very different. But so it is color graded to some extent,
Literally,
but very little. It's tried to be out of camera. Certain shots may have had a tiny bit of just contrast or saturation, but for the most part, not.
Yeah, and so, some of the new fancier cameras that have all the video features will have baked in LUTs like this. There's all these different ones you can choose for. So you would shoot kind of on a neutral profile, but then look at the LUT on it, or it would just bake it in without it being neutral. And again, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, is if you're just pushing out content, you want to make things easier, right? You don't have to worry about color grading. You don't want to have to worry about messing with the panels. You just want something that looks great out of the camera, and you just want to edit, right? It's going to save you a ton of time. And, different camera bodies have different color sciences, they say, that people prefer. I mean, I think this looks great. I use Canon. Canon has great colors that I like just out of the camera, so I don't have to color grade that much. So again, it's one of those things that the more you do this, the more you're going to make more educated decisions on what you want, what features you need, what features don't matter as much, and then you just start churning out your videos.
Yeah.
But I would say any 2021 cameras, regardless of brand, they're really solid. Like even the brand you really don't like in 2021, if it's their new release and it's mid-end or higher, it's going to be pretty solid.
Yeah. I think shooting it on log and getting the LUT on it, I think is really cool when you want that ultra cinematic look in a certain, look.
That's for specific types of videos.
Yeah.
Sure.
I definitely, we do not do it for every video. That's why we did invest in training.
And like we said, there's ways you can do it. Like expensive NDs, they tend to make things look contrasty right off the bat because it's just an ND. You could put pro mist on it. You could put, different, there's all types of mists, you know what I mean? Like at different levels of intensity for you to really achieve the look that you personally appeals to you, or the style of content that you make, like in camera.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, I always say, know your content, know your output. When you know those things, you know what the output's going to be, you know what you're making, then you'll be able to get the right tools for that.
I mean, it's honestly, when you start to look at your whole creation process, at least the cooking, editing part, as far as like a factory. Like factories have to, if you have a schedule, you got to get your product out on schedule. And that means that you're going to have to kind of say, okay, I want to spend time here. I want to spend time here. This is what I want to spend time on. Or this I can't afford because it's going to push my whole process back. I'm going to be staying up all night trying to color.
If I was a chef, I would only have 3 great knives. I think you only need 3.
one.
You only really need 1, like a mid-level all. You could do 1,
Japanese steel
but let's just
blade.
say 3 max. 1 at the least, 3 at the most. You know, and it's like you see all these knife sets on the internet you could buy for like 15 knives. You know, like that's 15 knives you're gonna have to clean and like keep sharp. Like, dude, that's a lot of stuff. Like, what are you gonna just become a knife collector at that point? Or are you cooking?
Yeah, we're not knife collectors. Come on.
Okay, quick time check. We have a little under an hour left, so we still got some time.
Okay. Actually, I did want to get into coloring a little bit though, because people asked, and like I said, like you'd want to color as little as possible, but sometimes you have to. And the comparison view on Adobe Premiere Pro is really, really helpful. Obviously, this is all done pretty much, but let's say it wasn't. Like, let's say I'm trying to color this food with this shot. And obviously these are 2 clips that are done, but essentially you can compare visually by using the comparison view. You can put the 2 clips next to each other, and then you can drag this anywhere in the video to find another clip that you want it to match. So let's say I wanted to match even the first spot. I can look at my shirt and be like, okay, both had natural lighting. How do it look? Yeah, and then you can go in and you can actually do apply match, which is actually a really, really cool tool. Guys, Adobe Premiere Pro is amazing in the fact that you can click apply match, and then it's actually going to automatically match you closer to the 2 clips. And then even from there, even if it's not perfect, you can adjust it and make it perfect. But it's just like a great way to start. And actually, that is the feature that we use to so we didn't, like I said, we didn't color this one too much, but when we have colored in the past, I did use the comparison wheel. You guys should check out the tutorials on Adobe as well. We put out 3 tutorials on editing this video, and we covered specific features like the speech to text, the color wheel, and then audio. So this is kind of like stuff that we talked about, but yeah, so that's it for this kind of sequence. This is actually not the full video, but these were 2 locations here. This was,
and Ferry's asking how to get to that workspace. Ferry, that's the Lumetri color panel. So if you look at the top, there's a color panel by default. It should be up there. You can't add that panel to any other one. You just have to bring in the effect Lumetri color. And when you go to the effect, you're going to see that workspace right there.
So color, go to the right side, Lumetri color, boom, basic correction. You have all this creative curves, color match wheel. Color match wheel is pretty cool. Okay. What's the other sequence?
Oh, he's asking the color match. You want to show real quick how to go back to the color match?
Oh,
yep,
so
right there.
you
So
can do
it's within the
comparison
Lumetri
view.
color. Yeah.
Comparison view. So then on your right side, this is going to be the frame that you're on, and then on the left side you can actually scroll through the video and pick the frame that you want. So yeah, like these 2 kind of look different. There's different lighting for Jackie here, but yeah, obviously you can see these 2. This is the same. Where's our kitchen shot? We got a kitchen shot there.
Very cool.
Oh shoot.
But yeah, that's just when you want your color grading to match between 2 clips, you know, just matching them together, which is a really cool, you know, tool that they have available nowadays. You know, simplifies it. Maybe something that used to take more clicks takes a lot less clicks.
What are my other? This is one thing that always confuses them. See, where are my sequences?
What are you looking for?
Yeah. See, I don't know everything about Adobe Premiere. Paco. So I had all these different sequences up top here that all the different stages. I had them listed earlier and then not sure where they went. I don't know if anybody in the chat might know actually, because like I said, I'm not really expert.
You'll probably just have to bring them back.
X'd out.
Do you know where they live? They should be in the project bins, and then you can just double click the sequences.
Yeah, because usually I don't make that many sequences, guys. So that's why I had multiple of them. So that's why I was a little confused right now.
Yeah, it should be. It's the panel called Project, I believe, and that should house all your clips, assets. There you go. And then somewhere in there should live the sequences.
So I'll just
just double click that.
Oh,
yeah, you can double click it or.
All right.
There you go. Cool.
Right.
You know, this exact recipe wouldn't even be out of place in a place like.
So here, what we did in stage 2, we added background music. So as you guys know, in part 1, we didn't have any music, and we could talk about audio enhancement and adding music in this one. So this is where how you might adjust your audio. So let's see what we got. So for this, we felt very classy. A lot of these restaurants are very, very nice. And yes, we did, for the most part, get permission to shoot there beforehand. Sometimes, though, it is a little bit run and gun, and it's a little exciting of trying to convince people to let us film. But we got the okay to film here. And yeah, we just wanted, like, everything was really classy and just really nice. And so we just wanted to add like a soft piano music.
Next up, we are here at Acre in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. This place feels like it's straight out Nishizabu. The chef and owners are from Tokyo. They focus on healthy and hearty food.
So you can just see how the vibe just changed with the music. And the music actually really does matter, because if you want to put like a fast pace, like, for example, the 2 types of music that we pretty much use we mostly use like upbeat, kind of like a boom bap hip hop beat, or like a lo-fi beat that just has like a constant beat to kind of keep the rhythm of the video going. It kind of like, also when you're watching, it just kind of helps you like kind of like get into it. But this one,
Brooklyn, this place,
we just felt like it was such beautiful footage, so we just wanted to bring the beautiful song.
Of fermentation and enzymology.
All I can tell you is that they're doing things.
Obviously, Tokyo, Andrew, being the most international city in Japan, it's a city with.
So here's what we want to show here. These 3 clips, we added a lot of audio enhancement. Now you can tell the change that happened. We added a compressor on these clips, so it goes from here.
Tokyo, Andrew, being the most.
So let me just mute this music track real quick.
Obviously, Tokyo, Andrew, being the most international city in Japan, it's a city with
okay, so
much Western influence that
like if you're watching on headphones, or you can feel through your speakers, that voice, like David's voice, just came through so much more on this clip.
Andrew, being the most international city.
I mean, this audio by all means wasn't bad. This was a shotgun mic, but actually the gain on it's not super high. So
being the most international city in Japan, it's a city with so much Western influence.
Yeah, that's a big quality difference.
Dude, that's a huge difference. And
would not
I will say, guys, back to not to have equipment talk, because we were just talking about how, you want to get caught up in that. But the preamps in the Blackmagic 6K Pro are probably its weakest point, because it's like we're saying, the cameras where, obviously it looks very good, but I would say it's like audio preamps and like maybe built-in abilities to compress and regulate audio is probably worse than a Canon or a Sony for sure. Because people really with Blackmagics, they don't typically use it as a run and gun tool. Like I would say a lot of people for sure run external sound with those because they're cinema. But you can run and gun with it. But if you do run and gun with a camera that doesn't have really like well-designed like run and gun tools, you're going to have to go in. And as you can see right now, we're going through, whether we're adjusting the gain, throwing compression filters on it, throwing some sort of sound pack on it to, you could either adjust the individual sliders, or you could just, hopefully, create a preset where you're like, that's what I like on my voice.
Yeah. We do have some questions in the chat. I want to fire away if you guys are ready.
Sure.
So Kevin's asking, have you ever had a case where you had to refilm footage because you realized when coming back to edit that it wasn't the footage you expected, or the mic didn't work, or yeah?
For sure. I mean, it happens, but it's just
So what I would say is pay attention. If you have an external mic, you got to pay attention to the volume meters, or I don't know the technical term, the sound bar, and have that on display so that you can always test your mic, when you're shooting, just test it right before you film. It's happened a lot more back in the day. I'll be honest, with the Rode Video Mic Pro, when you had to turn it on separate from the camera, that was a time when we did lose at least some intros. So here's the thing. If someone's filming, they got to look at the sound bar, and if possible, have headphones plugged in, have earbuds plugged in, and you're monitoring sound so that they know. And that's going to help it a lot. While with Sony's now, the Alpha system, we have a smart shoe. It's a little bit delicate because it's the hot shoe that
the microphones are powered through the smart shoe.
Yeah, it's powered through the smart shoe. So it's pretty much on and always has power. So we like that system, but man, the Video Mic Pro is also a very popular one, but that's something you just got to watch out for, is you got to turn that thing on.
Been there before, man. I feel the pain. I feel the pain.
I would tell people to monitor, we have gigantic like foam cup headphones, and sometimes the shooters, sometimes they do like to wear them, sometimes they don't, because they're like super big, but that's the way you can guarantee you're not going to lose them. Even with earbuds, it's like sometimes like kind of unclear. The sound monitoring is not as accurate as if you have the big cup over your ear joints. Like that will pretty much be like, and you'll never forget to plug them in because they're just these gigantic things around your neck, almost like a travel neck pillow. So you'll never forget about them.
They're harder to lose too, by the way. I had to borrow these from a friend because I think
we lost like at least 15 pairs of earbuds.
Yeah,
in the last year.
They don't make them easier, do they? With the wireless little AirPods, like
I know.
Lost the pin.
Like it's funny. I
couldn't
even. Yeah, I didn't want to try to hook up the AirPod to this one, but yeah, I mean, definitely monitor. And ideally, we didn't. I don't know if we ever lost like more than a few minutes of footage, but definitely there was times where like, oh shoot, man, we got to redo that intro. Yeah, and then we're like, man. So it's a team thing. I think. If we are working with like a different camera guy or someone who we haven't been working with for a long, long time, like, and even anybody, we'll still check, be like, hey, sound's on, check the sound just real quick, and kind of have that real quick, like sound check right before we start filming.
Awesome.
So
great definitely. One more question. Where did you get your music? Did you do it through Adobe, this panel, or
all this music is
from Essential Sound.
Essential Sounds, which comes with Adobe subscription.
Yeah, Adobe stock. So, to use these on a commercial level, you do have to pay for them, but you can use you can drag and drop these versions into right now. These are like a little lower quality versions. But yeah, obviously to technically use it, I mean, you got to pay for them. So yeah, we did. But at least Adobe gives you all these cool ones. I think they give you some free ones.
There's some free ones in there, I think.
Yeah. Are these free?
Yeah. I am not sure.
I think that's
say
great.
That they are, then people think they are free.
Yeah. I think it's great that there's like a really large free selection for people to use. But if you really are, unhappy with that or looking for a very specific sound, you can go into the paid library, skim through maybe 20, 30, 40 songs, and you're like, okay, that's the one that I need to complete my project, and you can just, pay a little bit of money for it.
So I do want to answer real quick Steve's question. Just a style question, guys. You guys always sit in the same position, left, right? Do you switch it up? Nah, man, we don't actually. I mean, really, there's only two different combinations. So it's either like this way or that way. They're both going to look pretty similar, to be honest. So no, but sometimes if we have been filming a video where I'm on the right side, we'll just keep it that way, or sometimes switch it up on purpose. It's not like a strict rule, to be honest, but sometimes we're just like, oh, get on the right side, or back to the right side, back to position. Maybe we won't switch it up within a cut, like within the same scene. We wouldn't switch it up, but no, there's no like strict rule.
Very cool.
Yeah. So audio, man.
Tokyo, Andrew, being the most international city in Japan, it's a city with so much Western.
I would say maybe the compression is a little too loud on these clips now.
This exact
I probably toned it down.
Would not surprise you.
But you hear the crunch of that green bean. I think it's really cool for when you have a quiet background one, right? Turning up the compression and the volume of your audio and bringing it forth is great. I know that there's things that if you're a wizard with it, you can kind of put the background music, pull up the treble and like your voices and stuff. I'm not, incredible at that myself. So that's why we just try to get good audio starting off. But yeah, sometimes you get unideal audio. So you just want to bring your voice up. And also if you do any sort of like ASMR moments, like if you're doing food and you want to hear something crunch, hear something snap, hear some gooey, whatever, I don't know what it is, but like, you can always turn up the compression. It'll kind of bring it forward, just straight up, like put it more directly into your ear.
Being the most here, there's like a really nice, slightly spicy sesame oil flavor going on. Kind of tastes like, I want to say their spicy version of like some Korean.
Yeah, so there's a drop.
Oh, that's a big difference.
Andrew, these waffle fries actually.
Yeah, you wouldn't really know how this audio sounded unless you heard it against the edited
against
one,
something else.
So
sure.
like, ignorance is bliss in that case, But as long as, here's one thing, definitely like, you want to listen to after you, this is more for the end, but when you have your whole project or you have your export, you want to listen to your video back on at least like one or two different sound sources just to make sure it sounds okay. Like don't just rely on the earbud and the headphone audio because it's going to sound different. That's not how most people watch videos, especially on YouTube. And YouTube itself already kind of compresses the audio a little bit. When you upload it, it's not exactly the same quality, right? Because it can't be. I mean, their players can't handle it.
Yeah, I would say if you want just your vocals to come through, look at like a lot of mid tones. I think people associate low end tones with like it being higher end, but mid tones is really where you get the clarity.
Crazy. That I forgot. I forgot how crunchy those beans are.
You really hear
Super
it
fresh, man.
So 12 out of 10.
Dude, crunchy beans, man. Dude, the Japanese bentos, these are like these are like modern Japanese bentos.
Tastes like the real life 250.
So yeah, I mean, you guys let me know which audio you think is personally better, which one you would prefer. I mean, there's pros and cons to both. It doesn't have to be on this level, but you could say that, yeah, this one's maybe a little bit subdued or muffled perhaps.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the clip that has a compressor, is that the same audio source? Like, is one just with a effect applied to it?
Yeah,
or is it
it's
two
just an
different
effect.
mics?
No,
It's
same
just an
mic,
effect.
man.
It is the same mini XLR
International city in Japan.
mic.
It's a city with so much Western influence.
Right, same audio
The most
source.
international city in Japan. It's a city with so much Western influence that.
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword, right? I think the vocals sound great compared to the other one, but you really hear like everything else, right? Like the crunch. I think the crunch is good, but then whatever sounds you may have in the background, those are definitely exemplified.
So let's see which one sounds better with the background music, though. Maybe the new audio is better.
Obviously, Tokyo, Andrew, being the most international city in Japan, it's a city with so much Western influence that
So it's actually kind of funny, in my opinion, listening to the two. This previous audio clip kind of sounds like it's mixed better and matches the background music in a way better, but obviously this edited clip is more clear, I guess, more like brought forward. So I don't know. It's like really, it's kind of like a personal preference. Like I said, the most important thing is that you play it back, because sometimes I've uploaded a YouTube video and it was like too late. Well, we've taken YouTube videos down, by the way, right after realizing huge flaws.
Oh, man.
Where the audio, like we get the first like 5 comments is like, yo, the audio's messed up, or, oh, it's so low. I have this on full blast, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my God. And that is like the last, like as the YouTuber, that's what you hate, is like you hear all these technical mistakes in the first 5, 10, 15 hour of uploading the video live. And you're just like, oh my God. And then you have to make a decision to like take it down and redo it. And then, because obviously the video is going to be up forever. So sometimes you got to sacrifice that initial kind of, views and then re-upload. And then some people are like, oh, is this a re-upload? I'm like, yeah, it was messed up. Like the audio.
So let me know if you do this, because I've definitely had that issue come up before. And my solution to that was, I have a twin brother, so usually before I upload anything or make it final, I have another pair of eyes on it, and they'll usually catch something like that, right? Because I mean, if you're editing something for like 8 hours and like you become way too accustomed to, you're not gonna notice things like that unless you get a fresh pair of eyes on it.
For sure, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah. So
On the back.
Oh. Wow.
I think people really like those fried crunches.
yeah. So actually,
people love the fried crunches.
Here's a
even
little
more,
trick.
even more than the bean crunch, the fry crunch, specifically of a waffle fry.
So here's a little trick. Actually, it's funny because there's 2 sound effects that we put in here, and this is specifically just because we're trying to show how you can add sound effects. I'm not recommending this, and I more so I'd like to.
We cheated.
Yeah, for this one, for the
We
chips, for the waffle,
cheated.
they weren't that crispy. All right, that's the truth, guys. You caught
that-
us. No,
That was a sound effect of a crunch that
this
you
one,
added.
not the bean. The bean was real,
Right.
by the way. Because you can see here's this little yellow FX. That one. Wow. So we'll solo this track. It's a sound effect. And this was
Caught red-handed,
particularly
my
for
friend.
these because these were not that crispy when we ate them. So we don't usually do this for videos. We mostly just rely on however the food sounds is how the food sounds. But it was for this video. We wanted to add an extra few effects. So we did add some sound effects for the food. The bean was a real crunch, though. I'm telling you.
Hey
Been caught in
man,
the chat. They're like, lies.
hey man, you
Got
guys, this is
red-handed.
entertainment, man. You think your favorite action star could really do all that stuff?
What, next thing you're gonna tell me
you
wrestling
think
isn't real?
you think Liam Hemsworth actually speaks with the American accent? No way. The
I thought you were
Hemsworth
gonna say-
brothers.
I thought you'd saying, do you really think that Liam Neeson could kill like 700 people?
Oh yeah, that too. That is more unbelievable.
Well, that's just a straight fact. I mean,
Yeah.
we all know that.
Yeah. You think that people never have to? You think guns really sound like that? I don't know. Laser guns. I don't know. Yeah, everything's got the. It's all post editing. But yeah, that's not what we usually do, by the way. But
Yeah,
that
Z
was
by HP's got it. It's called Foley. Yep, Foley's used in movies a lot.
What's
And
that?
we have an example right here. It's what you guys are doing.
Oh,
It's adding sound effects to
like
video,
we were
and
saying.
you got that crunch.
have you ever? There's some really good Instagram accounts called like Filmmaking X or something where it shows like behind the scenes of like this woman that does the sound effects for certain movies, and she's got this crazy room with a whole bunch of different like sand, wood blocks, like metal. She has like peanuts, she has hammers. Like it's just like this big workshop where she does all these different sound effects, and you see what she's actually doing, like footsteps, and you're like, wait, why is she like using
yeah.
these?
She's
certain
like running
sandals?
through the sand. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's like doing horse feet, and then she has like these little like clickers on her hands, and she's watching the
I've seen
movie
that,
while she's.
yeah.
It's really, really interesting, and it's actually kind of crazy to see how much work goes into the post editing of movies because
I
actually,
mean, that's a job in itself, right? Like
Exactly.
people
No,
like
that's a
that
career.
woman, like that's her career, and it's crazy. I mean, I think a good example is the TIE fighter noise in Star Wars. The way they made that was taking like a sheet of metal and like bending it and then like warping the sound, and that's how you get that like
those people are
it's
really,
crazy.
really creative, man.
Oh, that is.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, like whatever you think the sound is, it's actually not even that thing. Like, I remember like someone was like, "Oh, like a martial artist was like snapping a neck or something." It's just peanuts cracking. Just makes sense, yeah. But
That's pretty good. Would you have a question? Do you spend more time cutting visuals or perfecting audio?
Nah, definitely more cutting visuals. Like we said, like we just try to.
I think
Rock with the
the,
audio that
the
we
best
have.
thing you can do is capture good audio in camera. But second to that, I think if you have a overall compression formula that you can save or that you can download presets too sometimes, you just run that and just put that over your audio and then just live with it because you can't really go through and fix words and I said this too quiet and this was too breathy and I want to fix this. And it's like, dude, to be honest, if you have a job as a professional content creator, I mean, you just got to get it. You just got to get it out.
You gotta churn it.
I had a video go viral because of the sound effect. Yeah, no, sound effects and memes. Like this video doesn't have any memes because I felt like it wouldn't really fit with the style of video. But sometimes we'll throw in like little meme clips, like a wow, stuff like that. That's really popular that everybody recognizes. Those are really fun. Those add value too, especially for reactions.
Sometimes, yeah, I mean, it depends on the editor. They have the ability to, you know,
like a mix of New York and Japanese.
Have more sound effects than others.
People live.
Yeah. So we also boosted Jackie's voice just because he was didn't talk super loud. So that was, I think it's kind of important to maybe do it on instances like this when someone's trying to give you explain like what they do
New York
and the audio.
I just think it's the way that people live like in because everyone is taking risks. So if you don't have to take risks, then you're not going to succeed.
Yeah. I think the only thing is, like I said, when you bring up the compression, you got to worry about the background noise. And obviously when you film outside, especially in New York City, anywhere in New York, tons of background noise. Yeah. So there's pros and cons.
And then, you know, that's why sometimes when I shoot on Sony, I do use the brand new mics FX3 because they have built-in compression tools into the mic. Like we're saying, just try to get it right when you're on site.
Yeah. So actually this part 2 sequence has more B-roll laid on top, as you can see. So this is footage that you guys didn't see in the part 1. And this is actually just strictly B-roll shots. Like I was saying earlier, like you can try to grab all the B-roll when you talk. I think there's a really great YouTuber that does it. It's like Mikey Chen from Strictly Dumpling and Mark Weens, you know, they do a great, they also shoot, I think, separate B-roll shots too. But these are separate B-roll shots right here. And obviously when it's on top, that means it's going to be seen.
I've been here for like 2.5 years now. I think it's
and there's this multi-cam editing thing that's really cool on Adobe Premiere too, by the way. We'll get into that later. So this is a cool shot. Obviously it was a little dark inside the kitchen, but look what they're doing. They're torching the pork belly, guys. Can't tell
honestly, that kind of looks like it's out of Star Wars.
Like, yo, what's like?
Yeah, we could add, we could have sounded a sound of like, I'm gonna just add a sound effect right now.
It's like, yo, what's ramen with sauce, kind of like a pasta, and then bacon and eggs, like it's bacon.
There, that's
how you make sound effects right there,
guys. Honestly, I think there's a comedy food channel out there, or you could start one where you just do all the sound effects yourself, and it's hilarious.
Yes.
The owner Yuji, when he made the Mazuman, everyone was like, yo, what's like. Like in Brooklyn,
there was some guy did a YouTube channel where it's just like underwater animals, and he's just making sound effects of how they all sound. Like, you know how sharks like just kind of open their mouths and close it the whole time, and he's just like, it's just like a laughing shark the whole time. So it's there. You can make sound effects for anything.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point. I'm gonna check that channel
out there, so they gotta keep it up with the traditional. But over here, you can take more.
This food looks delicious, by the way. Dude, I'm jealous you guys got to eat this.
When they wave. Someone asked earlier, how do you nail the focus? And there's different things, obviously, on the cameras. The more advanced cameras, you have zebra lines,
focus peaking,
yeah, right, which is different colors, I think, and then zebra lines will tell you when it's focused to, or that's more exposure,
zebra lines tells you if something's overexposed.
Yeah, okay. Focus peaking, where something will be like bright purple on the screen if it's out of focus. I don't really use it.
If it's in focus, the color shines where it is. Like if you're focusing for an eyeball, then like the eyeball would turn, like you can change the color. So if you have it for green, like the eyeballs would turn green, and that's how you know that specific thing is in focus.
Yeah. So no, I mean, this food is.
They gotta keep it up with
the way Dan shot this.
But
it's not that hard to shoot it like this. It's exactly like I said. You know, you just have to hold it. There's like different 3-point stabilization where sometimes you have the camera strap around your neck and you have your hand on the lens, hand on the camera, and you're just kind of using that tension to hold it still, because not all cameras have the best in-body stabilization. But
right. And are you doing manual focus here, or are you doing autofocus?
This is manual focus,
everything in the Blackmagic is going to be manual.
Blackmagic is going to be manual. But like I said, the 80D, these more Canon has amazing autofocus. Sony has really good autofocus too. You can just tap to focus pretty much on a face. They do great face detection. Obviously for food it's different because like this is not a face, although I don't know if it would sense it as a face. I don't think so. I think it looks for certain like eyes, nose, triangulation between those. But Yeah, I mean, great footage. I mean, shout out is a little bit yellow inside. The as you can tell, this is outdoors, natural lighting, and then this is indoors, very warm lighting, dim kitchen. It was not ideal to shoot in, but of course, at the end of the day, you know, you can just kind of tweak it in the coloring process if you want, or just rock with it. Great questions too. Whoever asked the where do you spend more time, audio cutting or visuals?
Yeah. Keep the questions coming. We have the Fung Bros for about 25-ish more minutes, 20 minutes. So we're at the home stretch here, but if you have any questions or anything, let us know and we'll get those relayed over to them.
Here's what I'll just show you guys what I would do here. So let's do comparison view. Let's talk about this because this is like super warm. Now, is there a way we can make it look like this?
All right, so what we're gonna do is the color matching between these two clips. As you can see, the color temperatures are completely different. One on the right's indoors, really warm, probably 3,400. The other one's for sure like 5,500.
Looks completely different, night and day, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and try to click apply match and see what happens. All right. Oh,
that's pretty good.
So it's not bad. No, I made it more blue. Honestly,
it's a good starting point for sure.
A great starting point. It does match it. I'm not really sure what it did.
So the one on the right went way colder.
Yeah, it went colder. It changed because the white balance, obviously, when you're shooting with different color temperatures, right? Things look yellow and sometimes it's really, really hard to avoid. Sometimes you can't really avoid it, right? Paco, you would agree that that's why people like from movies and stuff, they don't even mess around. They just bring in humongous lights and just get their own sunlight.
Yeah. They want to be in control of it.
Yeah, they want to be in complete control. But yeah, I would say, I mean, this matched it up decently. Like, I'm not even mad at it. Like, part of me does like the original because it was more, I could tell it was more real, but well, I was there. So I think that's also why I know. But no, this one's not bad.
Businessman, everyone's out there, so they got to keep it up with the traditional. But
I mean, you see
it. I agree. That's not bad.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said,
the fact that you didn't have to pull any of those curves yourself.
Anything. And look, I can still change it all here if I want, you know. I can change all these midtones and shadows. Let me see what mess with the highlights. Let's look at this. Oh, I'm picking the color. Anyways, yeah. I mean, you can do it, and it's super quick. I mean, just apply match. That's the one button.
Yeah, Dacia's in the chat. She works with the After Effects team here at Adobe. And yeah, she agrees it's a good place to start and then tweak. Yeah, I think that's the idea with apply match. Yeah. So great start.
I mean, think of how crazy that would be if they could just, So this is a separate B-roll shot. Like I was talking about separate B-roll, not just while we're talking. Overall, if you have the time, it's cool to shoot these extra B-roll shots. So this was like a setup. We were like, okay, B-roll. And we just say B-roll. And then we say, all right, lift it. 1, 2, 3.
Amazing bentos. Here we have the eel one.
Nice.
Oh my gosh, this shot makes me so hungry. This unagi right here. It's
this looks so good. Looks delicious.
Everybody's got to go get Japanese food after this. That's it. On Adobe's dime. Adobe, you're sending out those Uber Eats.
You get
coupons,
Uber
right?
Eats. You get Uber Eats.
Macro bento.
Like, so yeah, that was a close up. I don't think this is zoomed in at all. We didn't zoom this in. This is just Dan got really close, panned. He is also on a monopod, by the way, so it helps.
A Spanish macro bento.
Andrew, a lot of people always wonder what Japanese.
Look at that food.
Did and cooked veggies here, and same with this eel one too. And I mean, I'm not saying that every Japanese person, gets to eat.
This is not the average
and we eat
Japanese
like
bento.
the leaders of the Shogun.
All right, this is a funny clip.
Some do.
The leader of the Tokugawa shogunate would be able to have that for breakfast every day.
David, so you saying we eating like the leaders of the Shogun?
I'm just saying a Yakuza boss could have that unlimited.
God,
Imagining who could eat this for every meal in Japan. So as you can see, that car drove by.
David, so you saying we eat?
I mean, we're on the street. This is actually a really cool shot though, because the outdoor dining area was something that you could sit on top of. So we're kind of elevated above the street. We're at the height of above many cars, as you can see. This was that a Ford or a Hyundai. in the background. So you see the street in the back. And I think this shot is one of the coolest shots in the video. Actually, I'm using my mouse wheel, by the way, to sift through that. That's crazy. I didn't know I could do that. But with that, there's obviously some background noise. You know?
David, so you say Yakuza.
Guys, this is not just like your average Japanese bento, okay? Let's be honest.
All right, for me, I've got tamago. I've got
Yeah, so the whole moving in, you could see like when Dan was moving in, and he's really good at camera work, but it was still hard for him to hit focus exactly because he's doing manual focus while he's moving. So I think he does a pretty good job. One way to avoid that, though, is you kind of decrease some of the cinematics of it, decrease the bokeh, and you just turn up the f-stop, and then it kind of will make everything a little bit more flatter in a way, like everything seems more in focus, even the background. So that's not bad for food. It doesn't have to look this cinematic at all. Like this, with the black magic and with like the shallow depth of field, it does look more kind of like a Netflix show. I will say like a couple notches towards that, but it doesn't have to. I think a lot of food channels, they want the food in focus at all times. So they'll just crank up the f-stop.
For me, I've got
tamago. So it was kind of fighting. He was kind of fighting. So now David picks it up. Again, Dan did a great job. It is very hard. We move quickly. Obviously, it's not in focus right now.
I've got
now it's in focus,
of course,
pretty much.
You know, something that
but David's hand is out of focus, so
Japan and Korea both adopted from the West the potato salad, which I'm a big fan of. Some of more the
culture talk, the explanation. I hope you guys are even learning about Japanese bentos while we're just doing these two clips. Any questions?
Oh yeah, Dacia just said that they threw a GoPro on a monster truck micro machine for a dolly shot inside of a pinball machine. That's crazy.
That's pretty cool.
That's a really cool shot.
That's crazy. So you put it on a little monster truck inside a pinball machine. Yeah, that's the beauty of it. I mean, you could do GoPros while you're riding around the city on a scooter, perhaps.
GoPros on pet collars. I've seen those before. Those are pretty fun.
You get to see the life of a cat, how they think,
what they see,
how they pounce, how they disappear.
I mean, I can see why everybody went to Japan because this is
Cody Bear said, I'm totally going to subscribe to you guys. Love seeing this food. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up back there. This Spanish macro was actually brined in seaweed and
we did have some questions earlier that I wrote down. So one from Clint asked, who inspires you as creator/artist, and how do you integrate their style and content in your own?
I mean, I would say I was inspired by a lot of Vice content, whether that was like Huang's World, Eddie Huang, or obviously Bourdain. Sort of Bourdain, he was the original, like sort of like
legend
culture guy, because he wasn't just like, oh man, that's a great omelet at the truck stop.
I know who you're talking about. That guy is also.
I'm not saying that guy, you know, that I'm referred to as bad or anything, because like obviously you're successful for a reason, but it's just not my favorite type of content. Just to eat, you know, gigantic omelets and stuff like that. But it's I think that Bourdain, I think Eddie, I like a lot of people. I like Dave Chappelle show. You know, I thought In Living Color, the Wayans brothers, you know, just anybody who's really not afraid to say what's on their mind. I think that I'm inspired by. I actually really like, as a comedian, I really like Tina Fey's writing. I think in terms of writing a show, it's like amazing. Mm-hmm. She deserves all the Emmys or whatever she's gotten.
There's Deez and Mero as a kind of pairing. They're based out of New York and they're really funny.
Obviously, I like Jon Stewart. I like Trevor Noah. I like Trevor Noah.
I like Trevor Noah. He's very international. He's very like cultured, and that's cool. I love Jon Stewart too. I miss him.
I think anybody that just has something really strong perspective and stuff they want to say. I have a lot of stuff that I want to say to the world and about the world. And, you know, people are, by all means, do not need to agree with me. I don't expect people to fully agree with me, or at least the way I see it, because we've all lived different lives and we all, to some extent, have different values and things like that. But one thing that I realize is, like, I just can't go out with the world not hearing what I want to say, even about stuff. I hate it when people say, oh, well, I didn't ask you that question. I go, I I don't care that you didn't ask me. You know, I'm going to let you know what I think because I'm a grown person that is, you know what I mean?
Well, I think what's great about creating is that, like we said earlier, it's like you show the viewer what you want to show them. And ultimately as creators, we live and die by that, right? Like if we want to say what we want to say and people are like, oh, I didn't ask for that. It's like, dude, then you can go to another channel, you know, like you don't have to watch our channel.
If you don't want a socio-political comedic breakdown after you see a bunch of, you know, like grilled eel, we might hit you with both of those videos in the same week. And, you know, some people, they, you know, even some business advisors have advised us against that. They're like, oh, do it on another channel. But I'm just like, nah, I don't know. I'll just do it how I want.
I mean, our channel is what we've been working on, you know, for almost 9 years. So it's kind of like our baby. It's like it's part of our life. And so ultimately it's like, it's our platform and we want to say what we want to say. I think I know I have a lot of friends who have way more fans than us and make more money because they give the people what they want consistently all the time and they don't stray away from that. And
you want me to eat 9 pizzas?
No, I think that's amazing too. I mean, if that's your goal as a content creator, but everybody gets into content creation for different reasons. And this is kind of more of a macro conversation for those who are thinking about creating. It's like, why do you want to create? Do you want to make AdSense money? That's fine. Then figure out something that people want to see from you and then just keep doing that again and again. If that's your number one goal, is your number one goal more like sharing your thoughts and then just trying to make money around that, then that's your, if you have something to say around I want to show New York City, I want to show I want to show LA, I want to show all the most beautiful places in the world. That's a great goal. You know, you'll just figure out how to make that work, you know, and build an audience from there. And at the end of the day, I think there's some people who want to create and building an audience is not even their number one. Like not everybody who uploads a video thinks that they're going to be the next biggest YouTuber. And I think that's totally fine. Some people do it for their family. Some people do it just to document things and just watch it later. Some people want to do it, use it as a time capsule. I'm sure YouTube servers are going to be around for decades. So you'll be able to find the videos for a long time. And maybe it's just like tracking your life or your family or your dog or whatever, you know? But anyways, yeah, I love this shot right here. I call myself the mixologist. This is not really mixology here, but I love to just mishmash things on my plate and try them, things that I think will go together. So I'm eating everything at once, the noodle, the kind of Japanese bacon pork belly, the uni stuffed within the egg yolk, and then with the salmon eggs right here and the bonito flakes.
Yum.
Is that a real word?
What?
Mixologist?
That's a word.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I think bartenders are mixologists.
I'm the mixologist. I go for it, man. I feel like it's my little way, my little moment to be super creative with the food and just say, hey, you know what? I think these two flavors would go together. And I think a lot of the time it's decent.
That looks delicious. I mean,
they did put this all in the bowl together, but I don't know if you usually eat all the elements together at once, but hey.
Yeah, you getting some love from the chat. Tasia says, I love that y'all get it. And then Umacorn saying, and you guys are right, if they don't like it, there are a ton of other channels they can browse and watch. Yeah. So.
Absolutely, man. You know, like I said, some people, I think on the internet, it's easy to feel entitled to, you know, you feel like you give your views or your times. I don't know. You just feel like entitled to maybe even control somebody's content. I would never, ever say that. I didn't say that about the Kanye album. You know, it wasn't my favorite Kanye album ever, but that's the point that he's at in his life. And I don't have to say it's my favorite, but I'm also not going to like take away from it just because it wasn't the album I didn't want to hear. You know, it was very like about his family and about his mom and stuff. And it's like, I'm not going to judge it because it's like, I didn't, you know, like anybody judging him, they're not going to make a song about their mom.
It's crazy how like Kanye has provided people so much stuff that they love, and then he puts out an album that like you don't love every song, and then you're like, Kanye made me listen to this free album on Spotify. You know, I'm like,
it's almost like
really
this is the most creative person, at least commercially, in the past like 30 years. I would say, you know, in terms of
fashion,
like
music.
Nobody's ever did it. In fact, you'd have to go back to like Ben Franklin to like see somebody, you know,
Da Vinci. I know, I'm just kidding.
But basically it's like you know, that's part of the process, man. He's not done. He got another 10 albums in him and stuff like that.
All right, off the Kanye talk though, but actually I want to mention
yeah, in a quick time check, we do have 4 minutes.
4 minutes. A lot of people, I think, when you start to create and you have a goal with creation, you start to empathize with other artists a little bit more. It doesn't mean that you like all other art, that you guys are all friends, or that you you know, are gonna repost their art and stuff, but you tend to understand what they go through. And I think that is something that's been kind of that understanding of how things are created is something that is increasing amongst the generations as more and more people get into their own creation level. You know, like we're talking about Adobe Premiere Pro. Honestly, 15 years ago, if you were messing with Adobe Premiere Pro, like you were trying to be a actual like movie editor. And now so many people are exposed to this, and anybody on the chat is exposed to this process, even our process. Now you understand our process better. And we're not Kanye level, right? But now you kind of see the philosophies behind it, and then you can understand, and then even you're going to have your own version so that you're going to be able to relate to other creators and artists in a different way, because you kind of go through the same things like, oh, what do people want to see? What do I want to say? Where's the balance? Am I trying to be successful? Do I want to make money? If I don't, how do I want it to look? How do I want it to represent myself? All those things. But man, that was really cool. So tomorrow we're going to be doing another live stream, and we're going to be talking about podcasts. I know there was a question from Seaning about what is our podcast style. Well, you might just have to tune in tomorrow.
Ooh, come back tomorrow.
And that's going to be dealing with multicam switching. We still can go back to this food video too, if that's what people are interested in. Like I said, for this live stream, I'm gonna do what you guys want. If you guys want us to go through the rest of this video, which we didn't even get through the whole thing, I can go through the exported and how we got into reels and stuff like that. But you let me know. Anyways, you guys tune in tomorrow, and we can figure it out from there. But we got another 2 hours tomorrow, so hopefully.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, as Andrew said, it's choose your own adventure. So tune in tomorrow. We'll decide where we want to take the stream from there, and it's going to be a good time. So don't go anywhere either, because we do have the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge coming up with Andrew Huckrattle. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And besides that, we will see you tomorrow. Same
Another
time
Andrew.
All right, later, guys.
All right, everybody. We will see you tomorrow, same time, 2 hours. Thank you, Paco.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, everybody. We'll see you later.